Hello, it's me, Mr. Sirius, and it's One Eye's Harbinger prototype versus my Scion of Splendor. And the Scion of Splendor is a variant that uses point defense instead of lasers. I'll recall why I was using it here, because the point defense is inferior than lasers against other walls like this. But here we are. And so this is kind of a bad matchup for me, because even though I can kill One Eye presumably if my nukes hit, they're never gonna hit. And like, the ship has the boost to try and make it so that the nukes are harder to avoid, but because One Eye is constantly moving so quickly, like, it's never gonna happen. So despite my best efforts, like, I'm going to be trying to move in patterns to make it harder to avoid. But despite that, it won't work. So One Eye, not wanting to waste a ton of time doing that, splits his ship. So normally this is disadvantageous, and if it was like a tournament match, you wouldn't be doing this, but it's more interesting this way. And like, clearly as you can see, you can't like micromanage all of them at once, so he already loses one. But unfortunately, my nukes take timer to reload, and they cannot work at point blank range, at least if not if I want to keep that part of the ship. So I have to try and escape both of these, which, you know, I'm not very good. And they can just like very easily dodge at range. So it's kind of unfortunate. I need to figure out how to chase them without getting flanked atrociously. I can probably stand being flanked a little bit. And also manage to like actually hit the nukes. Otherwise it's just gonna like, I'm gonna run out of ammo, and every time I have to reload they just get more time to fire at me. As you can see, it's very hard to hit nukes sometimes. But I almost got that one. And I have to take very carefully. And that one almost has... okay, I got its reactors. Now it's just the one turret left. But as you can see, I'm going to have a problem here where it can very easily like keep up with me. Because all the forward thrusters outcompete all of my rear thrusters, unfortunately. One Eye is very adept at manipulating my ship with his ship to avoid the nukes. So like, even though I launched 6 nukes there, none of them hit. He's continuing to dig into my ship. It's kind of bad. I'm gonna lose thrusters soon maybe. And I over-rotated, so I have to commit to a spin to try and get out of it. And now I'm pinned like this, so I can't fire back. Well, I fixed that now. So now I only have 2 nukes left. And I can only fire one of them without having them be destroyed. And I fire all 3 of them, and they do nothing because they hit the shields and the last one is dodged. That's kind of why the lasers are important, because after the shields are taken down by nukes, that's what the lasers are for, to destroy the defenses. But I don't really have any weapons left. As you can see, like, most of my front is missing, and I'm trapped against One Eye again. Because that ship is just really fast, and the main downside of huge thrusters, despite having like ridiculous speed, is ramp up time. But you see, you can ignore the ramp up time by just having more of them. So I just forfeit here. There's no way I'm going to be able to get him with my 1 remaining nuke. Now we're speeding up, and I showed that he had no ammo left in his cannons, so technically he's at a disadvantage. Well, minus the whole only having 1/3 of his ship left that also just has no ammo. As versus Octo. And Octo is a pretty decent player, one of the older ones that was returning for one reason or another. And unfortunately he starts turning a little bit too late, and we'll see another example of why speed is always going to be ridiculously powerful. Because clearly, as you can see here, Octo is completely trapped. And this is another reason for why railfans usually have the detachable armor, is that you can eject it and spin faster. And it probably wouldn't save him here, but it's another reason to have it. And because One Eye has laser weapons, he's not going to be running out of ammo, and Octo is just kind of pinned here. Kind of unfortunate. But alas, such is the way of speed and such. And a very interesting thing is that One Eye is stressing those reactors. They're all very, like, over-tuned. Or they have a lot of power draw that they technically can't support all at once. So you can see One Eye turned off his disruptors and the outermost lasers. And what he should do, or I think what is something he was considering, is to turn the shields off as well so that he can support more of the weapons. But he hasn't done that yet. So he's just using his main 4 lasers, or the main 6 lasers, to slowly drill into the side. And that's actually part of the reason why that ship has cannons. Well, cannons deal a lot of damage, they're very good at dealing damage. The main downside of cannons is, of course, that they don't really hit stuff, they aren't very accurate. But their ships, because they're constantly ramming and moving so quickly, well, you can't miss if your opponent's like right on top of you, if you're right on top of your opponent. And the other thing is that you don't have to supply them with energy. You can just put ammo there and then they're going to be completely supplied. So that's why they're there. And even though he did use all of his ammo for the first fight against me, like clearly it was to great effect because I lost that pretty handily. And well, obviously he doesn't need the ammo that badly because clearly he's still functioning completely fine here. Unfortunately, it's just getting worse and worse for Octo. He technically has no way to win this anymore because, you know, no weapons. But he can no longer escape. He only has one fire extinguisher on each of those rail segments, so they might die to fire because one fire extinguisher is often actually not enough. But when I'm now going for the control rooms, just really drive home the win, or to fully earn the win. And it's kind of frightening the effects of these ships, as you saw in that tournament as well. For our next match, we have One Eye's Harbinger, again, of course, versus my Eidolon, the classic, the beloved, everyone's favorite. Well, I think it's one of my favorites anyway. Okay, so off to a quick start. So, in this matchup, I need to be constantly evading, because you see, One Eye has the advantage if he rams me because of the cannons and such. So, when on the approach, I am constantly backing up and strafing back and forth, so he can't really get a focus on me. I'm trying to destabilize him as much as possible, so I have as much breathing room as possible. Because you see, he wins if he rams me, so I'm trying to just make it so ramming me is as disadvantageous as possible. And I'm having a little bit more success than like against Kawa's Blue Pages as an example, because One Eye has less armor overall on his ship, and I think Kawa's uses large cannons instead of smalls. So this is going a little bit better than it usually does for me. As you can see, I took some pretty sizable damage. The health bars at the top indicate that I took less damage though. And even though I lost a lot of my weapons, a few of my weapons, I didn't lose very many shields, which is very important. Because as soon as I start losing shields, it's like catastrophic compounding failure. Okay, as you can see, I'm already backing up again, I'm rotating, and I'm also trying to get, there you go. I'm trying to get One Eye to hit the rock, because if he hits the rock, then he cannot, he has to split. And splitting makes it so he can't as accurately or effectively bully my ship. So now I can focus on that ship and try and remove its reactor so it's not a threat. Because like, even if these ships don't have weapons, they can push me from behind and destabilize my movements. So I was trying to finish it off. And now I'm playing defensively. I'm not sure what happened to the third ship, but I'm very tentatively, when I was playing this, I was tentatively keeping tabs on it, zooming out every now and then. And now, since One Eye is faster than me, I have to let him disengage, which lets my shields recharge at the very least, but disengaging is pretty advantageous for both of us, so it's fine either way, I think. And now that he's returning, I have to try and prevent myself from getting flanked, since, you know, flanking is kind of good. It's part of the reason the ship has splitting capability. And as you can see, I've lost a lot of shields now on my center section, so it's becoming increasingly vulnerable, and I really don't want One Eye there. I want to be able to space get away, so that's what that spinning was. It was to get him off. It's very hard to actually ram something if they're capable of spinning fast enough, so spinning is a good evasive maneuver against rams. Assuming, of course, they don't just like disengage and then ram you from behind, since they're, you know, stuck spinning. And One Eye goes to get his friend off of the rock. because you know it's kind of not good. And you can use strafe, because all thrusters have some amount of vector thrust. You can use strafe commands to get off of rocks too. And that ship is pretty much free, so I'm back to a 3v1 or a 1v1 effectively. And this one is at full health, so it's probably the biggest threat. Well, it's at the closest to full health. It's lost some armor, taking a little bit of damage. But it can do the most damage if I were to like ignore it, as an example. So here, the two ships are focusing on my front, so they're combining their firepower again, which is very good. If you can't flank, you would want to be attacking from both sides, and I think a fire takes out my reactor, which is not good. Because now I have this gaping hole that lets you shoot at my thrusters. I think my middle segment is going to be going soon. And that might split me, which might be good. But if it doesn't split me, then I am kind of in an even worse situation. So One-Eye is definitely not down for the count yet. Though he has taken less damage than me, apparently, at this point. Because all of the ships are still functioning, even though I've lost a third of my ship. In terms of, like, capabilities. Even if he's lost more weapons than I have. So One-Eye is struggling to continue to threaten, because even though he did take out the reactor, it was through fire, so he didn't like directly kill it, because he doesn't really have any weapons left. And you can see these ships are trying to go in for strafing runs, and I'm angling myself such that it's difficult to shoot like directly at me. So by strafing, I make it so bullets will not be like aiming at the proper targets, they'll be hitting my shields, my remaining shields. And he can't like accurately ram me because I'm always evasively strafing. This is a bad situation now. I'm about to get a reactor and simplify things, but the other ship being that close is, I don't want it to be that close. I want it to be far away so I can focus all of my weapons on it. And One-Eye doesn't have any actual weapons left, it's just 2 disruptors, but if he has enough time, he will be able to destroy more stuff with the 2 disruptors. So I'm going into another evasive spin, or whatever the term is, disruptive spin to try and get him off, and that's the downside of such spins, is that if your opponent can ram you from behind, then you have a problem. Okay, One-Eye never one to give up too easily. Still has a third ship somewhere, so I'm not sure what the story is behind that one. Might have gotten stuck on a rock in the meantime. I've like completely stripped the right side of the ship. So that's pretty good, at the very least. And I have weapons directly firing at the reactor. Almost got it, and there we go. So, yeah, the last one's hiding behind the rock for one reason or another. And it's not coming to engage, so One-Eye may have forfeit, may have, walked away, because get a drink, better things to do. Because as you can see, that ship has no weapons, it can't do anything to damage me. So for a brief while, we're going to be watching these other ships. And it seems like it's just me and Collins left, so we're probably going to start fighting soon. And he seems to be moving towards me, so that's not good. And my ship can fight missiles, but it's a lot better if I have all of my shields up. Because otherwise the missiles can go in between my, shield sections and destroy thrusters, which is how I end up dying. And because I've lost thrusters, I actually have very much reduced ability to maneuver. And something that's very important when fighting missiles is ability to be evasive. And because of the lowered speed, I cannot be as evasive, and I have to just kind of like tank them, which is unfortunate, and then I'm split, and that's not good because my thrusters have taken a lot of damage, so these aren't going to be effective as traps. As you can see, the second one is already lagging behind because it has unbalanced thrust compared to its center of mass. So my hopes are not good here, because these ships have low burst power. Like, they're good at consistent damage, but for flanking you want burst damage. And as you can see, like, it's just gonna... Oh, there's a pause, because in multiplayer, after you die, your ships can continue to fire, so you want to forfeit. Otherwise you can kill players that are still fighting, which is just very unfortunate, so that's what that was about. Anyhow, you can see the bottom one is very little firepower remaining. It lost its operators, so its weapons turned offline, which means they're effectively dead, even though, they're still there. Then I get hit by a disruptor, I think, or EMP, and lost ship control for a second. It's not going well for this bottom trap of mine. Can't really move anymore, can't really fire anymore. So I'm trying to push him into the rock now. Because if he gets stuck on a rock, then I just win by default because he burns up the rod. And this seems to be the case of what's happening here. So he's not out for the count yet, he can still strafe off of it. So let's see if he can do that. It seems as though he's trying. And though I want to be eventually at the center of the Ring of Death, I don't want to be closer. And based on my ship's movement patterns, it seems to have been having issues, so I was trying to maneuver carefully, having issues, of course. And my dead ship, of course, managed to destroy the reactors because it was targeting them, and he hits the rock again and forfeits. Okay, now on to match 3, and it's One Eye's DC Rammer Proto 2, which is a splitter, apparently, versus my Scion of Glory, and this is the armor version with, armor, and, the lasers, because it's the Glory, And so that's a good example of how Momentum will always dodge nukes, because nukes have to aim at a given ship, so by stopping, or by continuing, they will aim at where the ship was, and there's just nothing you can do to stop that, because nukes are always aiming at the ship. And so here, well, the other thing is that deck cannons are kind of in a similar problem, where they just can't aim and hit things. So I can just strafe back and forth and they'll never be able to hit me, which is fortunate, because I don't like being hit by deck cannons. I don't think anyone does. And so One Eye is trying to figure out how to get these ships to be behind me, and he just arcs shots around the armor and destroys 3 of my thrusters. That's unfortunate. As you can see, they're all gone. So my thrusters were just cut, and that's another example of why nukes aren't good on moving targets. That was awful to watch. And I'm kind of in a rough position because deck cannons, if they can pin something, then they can hit it because it can't dodge for obvious reasons. But the downside of One Eye ships is that they have all forward thrust, and normally this is a good thing, but with traps it makes them very hard to control. As you can see, the other one got trapped, so I can shoot nukes at it and it can't really dodge. I'm preserving ammo by using the lasers, and allowing my nukes to hit the other thing, so that I'm more efficient with ammo. And as you can see, the other one is now dead without any extra nukes. Though one ought to be aware of it, because, cannons can kind of still kill you even though if they're dead. Which is very unfortunate, so one has to be aware of it. And One Eye doesn't really have much hope left because he's running out of defenses and still hasn't yet managed to do, effectively any damage, unfortunately. And I don't even really need to use any of the nukes because I can just shoot around the shields, and only shields can really tank the lasers, just give it enough time. So One Eye is now dead. Now it's going to cut forward to win to what else is happening on the battlefield. And really only 2 people remain left, so I'm just going around looking for and waiting for them, of course. It seems as though Blaze will be the opponent, and Pinecone Apple Trees Hellfire will chop, I expect, as he forfeits or dies. So it's Blaze's DC Cannon Rammer, and it's also in a rough position because, I can't hit nukes, or I can't hit fast ships like mine with the deck cannons, because it can always just keep strafing. Though he did mitigate the nuke damage by turning, which is good on him. Otherwise it will just cut through his ship. And there was armor on his ship from earlier, which, wastes now mana, so you can just hide behind it, and even if the deck cannon shots would have hit me, now they just can't. So I think at this point I was running out of ammo because One Eye was doing a good job of mitigating damage and dodging them, so I'm using lasers to save on them, because lasers are very precise and can shoot at the vulnerable deck cannons, because they were vulnerable after all. And the corner armor was worn away by my first volley, so I can continue shooting there. and see if the explosions from like the ammo and the cannons will cause fires and do more damage in the meantime while we actually fight. And I probably should have shedded my armor at some point earlier, because it's like I'm trying to use it, but it like hugely destabilizes my ship, and I'm not like using it very well to like tank damage, and I just gain a lot of speed if I drop it. And normally it's used against rails, but there wasn't any railguns, so it's not necessary to really have. And he probably lost his control room, so he can't function anymore, and I just shoot the last control room out. Okay, so before the tournament we were practicing team matches, and the night before, so that's what this is about. That's why there's 8 players in this lobby. And as you can see, I only mentioned, or the subtitles only mentioned 3 of the players on each team, and that's because they disconnect. And you see the game is kind of laggy at times, so in larger games disconnects are kind of just a common occurrence. It's unfortunate. So as you can see, the left team, which is me, Game Knight, and Quicksmell, already lost IO Silver, and this right team is gonna lose Corrupt, I think, which is the top right ship currently. Okay, so team games are very interesting and have different dynamics. So the top ship and the bottom ship, which is Eidolon, and the rail ship are both skirmishers that are about like flanking and harrying things. And basically all of the rest of the opponent teams are just like straight up go and kill that guy without very much subtlety past that, where it's just like they're good at shooting. And the last ship on our team, the black one that is currently dodging, is just kind of a anchor in that it like shoots and punishes things from really far away. And effectively our team strategy was to support him and make it so he's not bullied by the ships that win in direct confrontations, so he can like kill them all the time with sustained damage. So as you can see, it's now a 2v3 because we lost the rail ship, because it kind of just showed its rear to an opponent, which is one of the tactics ever. So now it's me and Quicksmell that have to fend off these two. And so you see, the Ion ship can defeat both of us in a 1v1. Well, I can contest it really well, but it's a close match, which is not good. And those nukes can definitely kill Quicksmell or me if they hit us, but they don't hit us, and that ship has to disengage now. And see, that was kind of a mistake, because now it leaves One Eye, or the Stellarator, or whatever that ship is, the Ion, by itself. And no matter how good you are, it's been discovered that you cannot win 2v1s. So One Eye is kind of in a bad position, because if he turns, he will expose his rear to the missiles. If he doesn't turn, I will continue firing at him. Though he's still scary, because even though he's like on a time limit now because of being flanked, I cannot actually tank that Ion, the laser, for very long. So I actually have to try and disengage, because currently he's dealing damage to me, which is not good. And Quicksmell is trying to give forward so that I can hide behind him temporarily, let my shields recharge, and so that he can continue to deal damage to One Eye, of course. But One Eye is maintaining target really well, and I cannot get Quicksmell in between the two of us. But now he's continuing to take more and more damage from the missiles and has to turn, otherwise he will start dying from them. And the nuke's finally reloaded, so the fourth, or whatever, the extra member on that team is back. And One Eye has his ions detonated by the missiles, so his ship is kind of in a bad position now. It's basically mostly dead. And the nukes miss again, and it might have been winnable if the nukes like completely killed one of the 2 players, but they just did nothing again. So One Eye is now completely dead, and One Eye's Quicksmell's nukes kill J-Freak's, more of J-Freak's ship. He has to tank those nukes because he can't dodge them. Fortunately, there's still some armor remaining. I strafe out of the way to avoid the nukes and continue harrying J-Freak while he retreats. Because as long as he doesn't have nukes reloaded, I'm basically completely free to do whatever I want to do for J-Freak's ship in terms of killing it. And normally he would have died sooner, but he has a ton of internal armor for one reason or another. I have to tilt to take the nukes on my side to the best of my abilities. That's some deck cannons firing, so I probably over-respect that given there's just one. And now I'm ramming G-Force ship to try and remove its movement options so I can continue shooting at its thrusters. That nuke's not probably gonna hit because we're rotating. The EMPs are kind of annoying maybe, but they actually haven't done much. I'm rotating the other way because those nukes have reloaded, and so I can get out of Quixmo's way. And I get the thruster, and I win. Or we win. This is the second tournament, well, it's the second highlight from the tournament practice session. And as you can see, Quixmo and One Eye are going to be disconnecting, which is kind of unfortunate based on how Quixmo was the fleet anchor and the main source of punishment for our team, which is kind of scattered without him. And One Eye was going to be a nuisance, but something manageable, I think. And this game is kind of a cautionary tale, and you'll see why. Well, past Quixmo and One Eye disconnecting, which is unfortunate, but in a certain sense expected. So I'm not as used to casting team games, so all three of the opponents are forward rammer type ships, with the exception of the top left one, which is a railgun ship, which is based on just flanking and sniping out the rear from other ships. And my ship, the Eidolon, can't actually deal with it at all, so it's kind of running and just dealing with the other ships that it can deal with. Which is, it's not advantageous. We don't really have a way to address it because the railgun ship on our side can't take it on. So I'm just trying to kill this cannon ship, which I can deal with, and hopefully bait Juno or the Ion rammer ship that's currently approaching me to attack. And I kind of don't want to be doing that, taking damage like that, but fortunately I was capable of getting away. And you see, here's the funny part. Weapons can still fire if your ship is dead. I had forgotten this fact. My ship just died there, so you can see. I lost 4 of its 6 reactors in 1 second because the dead ship fired from behind me, which is just very unfortunate. There goes the 5th one. And it might have been winnable, but now it's a 2v2, and the left ship is kind of dead on our team, so now it's a 2v1, where both of them are kind of advantaged against our remaining player. So always keep in mind, dead ships can fire at you and they will kill you. Because, see, the ship wasn't a threat until I started ignoring it. Ignoring a ship for obvious reasons has negative effects. Currently it's 2 1v1s, where they're both prolonging the inevitable in a certain sense. Cool Gamer Tag, which is the huge armor ship, is going to be flanked soon, which is unfortunate, because can't really get out of it because of the obvious lack of speed. And the left ship is now dead, so now it's going to be the still dead ship that is also still firing, is going to continue to destroy the thrusters. The rail ship is going to finish me off for one reason or another. Probably because he can't actually help in this currently. And I think that the deck cannon ship might actually get a second kill despite being dead. Because it just has to take out the control room. Really, it's already kind of dead because it has no thrusters and it has no way to kill the railgun ship, so she's going to maintain distance. But always remember, dead ships can and will kill you, because very clearly it happened here. Would not recommend.